so one of the questions we get at Magnus quite a bit is re-sharpening broadheads. Can you do it, especially on these aggressive, the Black Hornet, and in particular the Ser-Razors with the serrations on here. Now this is a head that I actually, like 3 days ago, killed a doe with. As you can see, and I'll put photos on it before I clean the dirt off. But this head is immaculate. Now it's not razor sharp anymore because it did go completely through a doe and bury itself probably 6 inches into the dirt. So we're going to touch this thing up, but there's no dangs anywhere in this head whatsoever. So we're going to touch it up. So how I go about it typically is I've got an old KME broadhead sharpening kit here. I've just had it for years, but you can use other jigs with sandpaper, with stones. You can use like the pull-through sharpeners, but the problem on a pull-through sharpener is on the serrated heads, you're going to dull the leading edge of the serrations as it bounces through the sharpener. So I wouldn't use a pull-through on the serrated. I would use drag across, where you drag it across with the cutting plane. So I'm gonna get out the KME here, and we're gonna sharpen this head up real quick. So the first thing we're gonna do is we gotta disassemble this head. You need a #1 Phillips screwdriver. That's the best size. I've got a slit here in the between the boards of my my workbench, so it holds it nicely. Be very careful. Even if you think it's dull, it will still cut you. Chances are on this one, the back blades are still very sharp, seeing how it just blew right on through the dough. As you can see, it's just that simple. Take that screw out, take the main blade out, and then using a small screwdriver, we can pop out the little spacer piece, pop it aside, and then you can just twist out the bleeder. So there's your components. You basically have 5 components. You got the ferrule, get the spacer, the little screw, the main blade, and the bleeder blade. All right, so in the case of the KME, you get a stone, a more aggressive side and a smoother side. Since this head wasn't damaged severely, I'm only going to use the smooth side. I always put a very liberal coating of honing oil on whatever stone surface that I'm going to use to sharpen. So as you can see, this is in the KME jig right here. And one of the things we like to do is take a Sharpie and go ahead and mark with that Sharpie down the cutting edges. This will let you know how your contact is with your sharpening stone. And then, simple just simple passes. There's debate as to whether you're supposed to go forward or backwards. I personally like to go backwards. I don't know how much it matters. I'm sure that somebody can comment. And they'll probably prove me wrong. All I know is I can get a very sharp edge. So as you can see, we're just removing the edge, the very tip of what was colored black. So I'm actually going to move this head out so I can get a little more of the surface of that broadhead. You can see I'm just pulling along. Again, with these serrations, it's important that you sharpen this way and not do a back and forth like you would in, say, a pull-through sharpener, because you want to preserve those serrations. Another question we get asked a lot is, do you need to sharpen into the serration in the deep part? I don't personally think there's a need for it. I know that some guys do, and if that's your preference, I'd say go for it. You can even do it with the bleeders. You just have to make sure that the blade is parallel with your sharpening jig. right, so now these things are really sharp, both these blades, front and back. I barely hit the back blades because they were already sharp. The bleeder wasn't messed up at all, but I did sharpen a little bit. But if you really want to get these things sharp, the best thing to do would be to strop them on some leather. So we're going to do that now. All right, so we've got a piece of leather here. I've rubbed honing oil on it. It's already soaking into it, but it'll still do the job. Why do we want to strop on leather? Because if we looked at this under a microscope, we would see a burr along this edge, and we want to remove that burr, and leather is the best tool. And again, get it on there, get it square, count your strokes, and pull away, and just take your time. You want to apply uniform pressure. And now that baby is sharp. So now once you get them stropped, they're super sharp. You're going to be very careful holding them. The more time you spend doing this, the sharper these are going to get. So if you're really anal about how sharp you want your heads, then spend a lot of time doing that when you're going re-sharpen them. On these Black Hornets, there is one thing to note. They have a Tonto tip, which does not come down to a sharp razor edge for that last about 1/16 of an inch or so. That is intended to be that way so that it doesn't fold over. So now all we have to do is reassemble the head. You want to make sure, especially if it's a used head like this one was, dirt gets in the grooves and where the blades are. Take a little screwdriver or pick or a toothbrush. Make sure you get all that dirt out of there. That way you can seat the blades all the way back in and get this thing to spin true. All right, so when we reassemble these Black Hornets, there's a notch that goes up towards the front of the broadhead. Then you're going to insert your spacer block. The spacer block just goes in this slot right here, and it can be a little bit cumbersome when you got fat fingers, but you get that in there lined up like that. You're going to take your head, again being very careful because it's very sharp. You're going to slide it all the way in till the hole lines up, and take your screw with your number 1 Phillips screwdriver, and you're going to tighten it down. But we are not done yet. We need to spin check these. And so at the factory, Magnus dials in this tip to the center line to 3/1000ths of an inch. Now obviously you and I can't do that. We don't have the jigs and the measuring equipment to do that. But all you have to do to check these and be pretty close is put your arrow on a arrow spinner. You can pick these up relatively inexpensively online. I like to spin it and look at it, see if I see any wobble, which I don't. I like to then use a cardboard box as a reference with the tip, because then you can see if there's any walking. And I like to just put the tip up to it and spin it and see if there's any walking of where that tip intersects the cardboard box. And there's not. I've got a perfect little tiny dot right there where the tip was, so I know that that broadhead spins true. And that is all there is to it on re-sharpening a serrated Magnus head. This happens to be the Black Hornet Ser-Razor. The same applies with the Stinger buzz cuts and the Killer Bee buzz cuts as well. So there you go. Your little tip for those of you who just want to re-sharpen your head. So as always, check us out at magnusbroadheads.com or all the social networks. And remember, we are 100% made in the USA, lifetime, no questions asked, no BS replacement warranty.